so we're going to go to the room. Those in opposition,
Sure.
please raise your hand.
No, check your email real quick.
No one in opposition?
Yeah,
Oh,
that one.
okay, please stand. And I think someone will take the microphone to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm J.D. Bullington speaking on behalf of the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. Just to clarify, this bill is a minimum wage bill for institutions of higher learning, correct, and state employees? You told the other person this was not a minimum wage
you're right.
bill.
We may have told him the wrong information.
You told him it was not a minimum wage bill, so I just want to make sure that's what we're talking about here.
Representative, do you want to clarify that?
I want it, yes. So the title of House Bill 264 is relating to state employees, providing for a future increased minimum salary, annual leave accrual rates, and paid parental leave. This is for state employees. This is different from House Bill 246, which is a minimum wage bill across the board for all the state, for the entire state. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. The Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce respectfully opposes House Bill 264. This bill has a large impact on the state budget, increasing salaries for state employees, and then also increasing them annually based on the Consumer Price Index, which creates the potential for an economic setback when we have another economic downturn. It also mandates 12 weeks of paid family medical leave for parents of a new child, which puts this legislation ahead of the policy that's already articulated in House Bill 11. The Chamber believes that these types of salary increases should not be tied to inflationary measures like automatic COLA increases, and the legislature should revisit increases in these state employee salaries with caution and care and keep them isolated from other employee benefit programs. Thank you.
Anyone else in opposition in the room? Okay, let's go to support on Zoom. Alrighty, so can you tell me who is up? Who? Bill Lee in support for House Bill 264. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I don't know how my hand got raised there. Excuse me.
Okay. Who's next on Zoom? Diana Good. Go ahead.
I'm not scheduled to speak. I think my other colleagues have prepared statements.
Thank you. Only if they have their hand up. Oh, okay. Sunny Gonzales.
Hello. Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I'm a union member and a current employee with the state. I am also disabled, and I want to speak briefly on the impact that remote work would have for the state to be more accessible to current and future employees. I live with widespread chronic pain, joint instability, low blood pressure, and chronic fatigue, among other things. Working from home allows me to manage my pain with things like joint braces, heating and cooling pads, the ability to change seating as I need. I can manage my blood pressure with compression garments that I might take on and off throughout the day, elevating my legs and adjusting my diet with salt and liquid throughout the day as needed. My blood pressure cuffs, braces, splints for joints that can start to hurt throughout the day, kinesiology tape, and other medical supports all stay at home because I will hurt myself trying to haul those between my office space and my home, and I simply can't afford to buy duplicates. These are a few examples from my personal situation, but I encourage you to think of the over 1 in 4 New Mexicans over 18 living with a disability, and that stat is from the CDC. And this is the same pool of New Mexicans that make up our workforce. From home, employees with sensory issues can control their sensory environment. Employees with diabetes can manage their blood sugar. Employees with seizure disorders can continue their work when they are on driving restrictions. Employees can prevent migraines triggered by lights and
Sunny,
smells.
your time is
Yes.
up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diana Good, you have 2 minutes.
I respectfully leave room for my other colleagues.
Okay, stop calling on her then. All right, there isn't anyone else on Zoom. We'll go to the room. All those in support, please raise your hands. Okie dokie. Please be brief. If you can be briefer than 2 minutes, that would be appreciated. Thank you. So whoever's first.
Madam Chair and Committee, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lindsay Bargell, and I'm speaking as a union member. I'm an employee at the New Mexico Environment Department, where I have worked for the past 4 years. Highly skilled workers have options these days, and we are eager to go where we are valued. I'm constantly being recruited by environmental consulting firms, but my family comes first and my job second. I left a higher paying job as a landlord subcontractor to work for NMED because of the paid parental leave and flexible alternative work schedule. Now, years after I've had my child, as I am paying exorbitant daycare costs, I am eager to be retained by a competitive salary, more PTO, and the option of remote work. Every January, I carefully plot out how I am going to use my PTO to cover the 29 days that my daughter's daycare is going to be closed that year. And I hope that my 15-year-old car will make it until she is in kindergarten and a car payment can replace the daycare bill. It was hard to even sacrifice 4 hours of PTO to be here today. All of these different benefits are necessary to recruit and retain valuable employees as they face different personal challenges throughout their lives and careers, and state workers deserve for their benefits to be codified into law. Thank you.
My name is Jerome, Madam Chair, members of committee. My name is Jerome Romero. I'm a regional vice president for Northern New Mexico for CWA. I wanted to address some of the concerns of the gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce. The way this bill is structured, we currently have no employees that are at $15 a minimum, and I want to thank all of you here for getting that done for them. And so I think it's amazing to be to do in the state, but we're still really struggling with not having a floor of just a base of $15. I'm going to speak for the custodial staff who go down to the shelter here to eat for lunch because they can't afford lunch here in the city. Rent is $2,100 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment here in Santa Fe. A lot of our security guards are homeless, and so they might live in the parking lot across from where they work and come in, or they live in a single trailer, one of another.
Who's next?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Carter Bundy with AFSCME. We stand in strong support of this bill and thank the sponsor for bringing it and our sisters in CWA for being the experts. Just as a general matter about COLA, we really need to be indexing more of these things to inflation, and that applies to our healthcare premiums for the state, and hopefully we'll see that bill a little bit later. It applies to almost everything we do because businesses get to raise their cost, landlords get to raise their cost, and if there's not a guarantee that we're keeping pace at least with base inflation, then we're going to fall farther and farther behind, and you're going to hear more stories like the one this gentleman just shared. So we encourage you to support that part of the bill, and of course, annual leave. We are not competitive with the private sector at all at annual leave. A lot of state employees are looking at 2 and 3 weeks for the entire year, and they have families. Forget about going off and doing something fun. They need that time just to take care of doctor's appointments and family issues. So we hope you'll support this bill and move it along. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee. John Lipschutz with the New Mexico Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO. As you all have heard before, we represent well over 40,000 workers throughout the state in the public and private sectors. We stand in strong support of this measure and pretty much any measure that provides anything close to a reasonable wage for workers, reasonable benefits. We are not asking for the world like a lot of folks do think that we do. We're asking for a modicum amount of respect in the workplace. And we will always stand for these measures. And, you know, as was stated during introductory testimony, if we were in a position in the state where we were turning away people looking to work for the state, I could maybe understand that. But with a 25% vacancy rate, that is unacceptable. And the only, or certainly the most effective way in order to fill those vacancies is to offer fair wages, fair benefits. So for those reasons, we strongly urge you to support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please move over to the microphone.
Madam Chair and Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Yomei Shaw, and I am here speaking as a Union Steward at the Department of Health, where I have worked for the past 3 years as an epidemiologist with a PhD in public health. When I was hired in the summer of 2022, the COVID-19 pandemic remote work policy was still in place for state employees. DOH employees demonstrated that we can work effectively from home to conduct our surveillance and epidemiology response activities. I worked every day from 8 to 5 p.m. with an hour lunch break. I work on a team that conducts surveillance for respiratory hospitalizations. My team includes non-DOH colleagues who all work remotely, based in other locations in and outside of New Mexico. For my team and many others at DOH, we could continue to work effectively while remote because all our work is done on a laptop with video calls. In February 2023, all state workers were required to return to the office. My work was almost exactly the same as before, working 8 to 5 p.m. on a laptop with video call meetings. The only difference was that now I had to spend an extra hour each day commuting. Most epidemiologists in other states and institutions are permitted to work remotely. Returning state workers to the office has pushed and continues to push many of our most talented colleagues to leave DOH for other employers. In fact, before February 2023, 2 of my team members left DOH for another employer so they could continue doing the same work, but remotely. According to a 2024 survey of New Mexico state workers, 37% are considering leaving their position due to a lack of a remote work option. Lack of a remote work option makes it difficult to hire epidemiologists we desperately need to carry out our work. Combined with lower salaries, we simply cannot compete with other job options. Providing a remote work option for state employees will help the state fill vacancies and retain workers so we can better serve New Mexicans. Thank you.
Next.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Ann Keller, and I am the treasurer for the local 7076, and I'm here in that capacity. On behalf of myself and all of our members, we would like to thank Representative Roybal Caballero for bringing this legislation forward. In the 2024 study of the New Mexico State Personnel Act and the state system of classification and compensation, Deloitte concluded that the state of New Mexico falls below the national average of annual leave accrual. CWA's own research supports the Deloitte conclusion. Of the 50 state governments and the cities of Santa Fe and Albuquerque here in New Mexico that we surveyed, the state of New Mexico's annual leave accrual rate ranks at the very bottom. The cities of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and even our neighbors, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Oklahoma have a more generous annual leave rate than the civil servants in the state of New Mexico. Second, the proposed annual leave accrual rate for Senate Bill 264 is the same as GovEx employees are currently getting. We are asking for nothing more than what they are getting. We believe we deserve equal treatment because we work as hard and we are the backbone of state government. Third, after checking employees that have 20 plus years of state work, they have reported that their annual leave accrual rates have not changed since they started back in the early 2000s. So we believe it is now the time to implement increased annual accrual rates to retain our existing.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. members of the committee. My name is Alexander Sanchez. I am here as a union member and as a current employee of the state of New Mexico. I come to express my support for this bill. In my opinion, as a state employee, providing flexibility to the workforce would be a benefit to the entire state workforce, not only current employees, but those who would be seeking future employment as well. Having an option for remote work would allow for an increased diversity in the workforce, as has been pointed out before, and provide opportunities for new individuals to become employed who wouldn't otherwise be considered, or would turn that offer down because they would have to choose between a better paying job that would allow for remote work or a commute of up to an hour or more one way to a duty station far away from their home. Guarantees for parental leave would help allow for a better balance for those of us who either have families or are planning on starting them sometime in the future. In my opinion, those who have the ability to work remotely are more productive, are more satisfied with their work, and are far more inclined to stay employed even if the pay isn't as good as it could be in the private sector. Having that flexibility is a very high benefit and a good consideration for staying in these places. People like me or my wife who do have to choose between either a $300 monthly gas bill or more, or have to spend almost 20 hours a week commuting back and forth to Santa Fe, or stuck in traffic trying to just simply cross Albuquerque as I do for more than an hour one way. For all these reasons, I hope you stand and support this bill, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair and Committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tristan Ramirez, and I'm here speaking as a union member at the Environment Department. For the past year and a half, I've served as a health compliance officer for the Occupational Health and Safety Bureau. When we consider how much our lives are spent working, about a third of our life, it's clear that our personal time is precious. After work, we dedicate the remaining hours to handling everyday responsibilities, commuting, chores, cooking, and childcare for those of us with kids, and then we try to squeeze out the remaining time before bed. For most of us, myself included, annual leave is not just a luxury, it's a necessity to make up for time lost during the year. Whether it's visiting family, enjoying a vacation, or simply recharging, the time is invaluable. Yet, for most of us and most of the developed world, 2 weeks of annual leave is hardly enough for state workers who work tirelessly for their community and state. This is especially true when, as many of us have experienced, annual leave must sometimes be used for non-vacation related situations. It's hard to overstate the value of annual leave. Last year was an incredibly difficult year for my fiance and I. Her father passed away suddenly at the beginning of 2024, and I'm sure, as many of you can understand, grief is unpredictable and overwhelming. With only 3 days of bereavement leave and less than a week of annual leave to process such a devastating loss, we were left scrambling to manage both our emotions and our responsibilities. Half of our annual leave was spent navigating the aftermath of losing a loved one, while the other half went towards a trip in Toronto in October. That trip became a much-needed escape, a chance to relieve the emotional pressure of the year, explore a new place, and most exciting of all, getting engaged. This is how state employees use their annual leave to recharge, heal, and simply live. Currently, as a relatively new employee, I accrue only 2 weeks of leave per year. In contrast, every country in the European Union mandates at least 4 weeks of paid vacation annually. Even in the US, many private sector companies and public agencies are moving towards 3 weeks or 4 weeks.
Thank you. I think we have 2 more people. Go ahead.
Hello, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Tiffany Pineda. I am a member of the union and also a current employee with the state of New Mexico. As a union covered state worker, I'm asking you to support House Bill 264. It would improve the lives of public workers like me, our families, our communities, and of the New Mexicans we work to support. Remote work would significantly reduce my community costs, such as gas, public transportation, fares, and vehicle maintenance. Additionally, it would help me save valuable time that would otherwise be spent in traffic or on public transit, allowing me to focus on my work or personal responsibilities. Paid parental leave would provide essential financial stability during a time of major life changes. It would allow me to bond with my child and support my family without the added stress of income loss. This time would be invaluable in ensuring a healthy transition and reducing stress for both my family and me. I am responsible for assisting in managing projects and contracts for the state of New Mexico for the department I work with. These tasks are critical to ensuring the impact of my work, compliance, efficiency, and public service. My work supports the state of New Mexico's missions, contributes to the department's goals and outcomes. Compared to other employers in the industry, my pay is relatively low for the responsibilities I carry out. My compensation is not competitive with the market rates for similar positions in public or private sectors. Many coworkers of mine have left the state of New Mexico for positions offering better leave policies, remote work options. Their departure has increased the workload of the remaining team members, and in some cases,
Thank you. Next.
Sorry. Madam Chair and committee members, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am speaking in support of this bill. The state is unable to accommodate my service dog at an office closer to home, so I have to commute 3.5 hours a day to work in an office. And the leave that I've taken last year, the majority of it was to help my family because I'm just not available during the week because I'm too busy commuting. And I don't mean to sound negative. I feel very positive about this bill, that this is a pro-family bill. It will support workers to have more time with their families instead of commuting. It will support more time to allow them to bond with their newborn children. It is a pro-rural bill, that it will allow rural jobs, that you don't have to live in the city to be able to work for the state of New Mexico. And it's a pro-job for folks with disabilities, that there are people with disabilities with exceptional abilities that want to work for the state and serve the people in New Mexico, and this bill will make that easier and allow it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that it concludes our public comment. So we'll go to questions from the committee. No questions?
Madam Chair, may we have closing?
Oh, you want to do that now? Okay, go ahead.
Closing because of, yes.
Sure,
yes,
go
thank
ahead.
you. I want to go ahead. Not closing. Okay, they want to go ahead and wait. We'll wait. We'll wait until after.
Alrighty. Okay, Representative Hall.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Madam Chair, expert witnesses. A few questions here. Can you explain how our current annual leave accrues based on their years of service, please, Madam Vice Chair?
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, thank you. Yes, the current leave accruals you can find in SPO board rule, but I can read them to you right now. Currently, we as state employees accrue 3.08 hours per pay period for less than 3 years of cumulative service, 3.69 hours per pay period for 3 to 7 years of service, 4.61 hours per pay period for 7 to 11 years of service, 5.54 hours per pay period for 11 to 15 years of service, and 6.15 hours per pay period if 15 years or more of service.
Thank you. And Madam Vice Chair, Madam Chair and expert witnesses, on the proposed parental leave, is that a flat 12 weeks a year and then it starts over, or will it accrue? Madam Vice Chair.
Madam Vice Chair, if I understand your question correctly, Representative, and let me know if I don't, it is 12 weeks per child per employee. It's not an accrual. It's if you have a child, you're eligible for that. And that is currently offered under executive order.
Thank you. And then, let's see. When we're looking, I was looking at, let me go back and look at page 7, part K that goes over to the bottom of page 7, going over to the top of page 8. Madam Vice Chair, Madam Chair and expert witnesses. I have no problem with remote work. Would this be on I'm hoping on a case-by-case basis, you'd have to explain why. Because having come out of the federal government and during it, we discovered we weren't able to actually verify people were working. And then when they got called back to work, it didn't go over too well. Because there are definitely some jobs that can be accomplished at home. But my concern on this, that it's just not going to be a free pass for everyone. And that's maybe not good terminology. Forgive me for that, but does that make sense, Madam Vice Chair?
Vice Chair and Representative, I'll begin and then Lindsay Hurst will continue. I will call your attention to page 5. Oh, you can't hear, sorry. Okay. I will call your attention, Representative, page 5, which states the under the terms or conditions or situations under which remote work will be approved or will be applied for lack of another word, or requested, and then how that will be carried out per the department, per the position, per the workload, per all of the factors that go in that a supervisor assesses in order, and finally, the evaluation of the productivity in the remote work. So I wanted to begin with that, and then for further detail, I'd like the expert speak to it.
Madam Vice Chair and Representative, thank you for the question. As the chair drew your attention to, Section C, we are putting essentially all of the decision-making ability about what positions could qualify for remote work in the hands of the employer. So currently, there are positions that are essentially remote working. Some of them are called deployed workers, if you've heard that term. And this would be employees at, for example, the PRC, Public Regulation Commission. They inspect gas lines and such. They are traveling all over the state. They essentially have a home office and a state vehicle and a laptop. And that is how they complete their work. They are independent workers. At the Environment Department, for example, we have a lot of inspectors who have a travel abroad range throughout the state. And these types of positions could be eligible under this. A lot of others could, but we're putting all of the decision-making ability in the hands of the employer based on job function, nature of the work performed, and the operational needs. So that's the first portion of your question, I believe. The second part was concerning how these remote workers can be evaluated. So currently, state employees who are in career status are evaluated twice a year. There is an interim evaluation and a final evaluation. Each evaluation is required to have a list of what are the expectations of the job. And essentially, remote workers can still be evaluated based on their productivity. So at one time, I was an air permit writer at the Environment Department. And they had an entire system. Each application that came in was evaluated for complexity and about how much time it should take to write that permit and follow through on all the steps required. And so they did the math for each application coming in, divided the workload into an amount that a given employee could reasonably complete in their 40-hour work week. And then there were interim steps of, okay, did you complete this part of the process? Did you mark this complete? Did you complete review? Did you issue a draft? And so there's very clear steps that are predefined for a lot of these types of positions. So essentially, it doesn't matter where you're doing the job from because it's very well defined. So that is something that an employer could make a decision based on in terms of, okay, can we effectively evaluate performance while people are remote working? I can provide other.
Add, Vice Chair and Representative, that the bill doesn't mandate but opens up the option for agencies to make these considerations. And the other point, and what I was really excited about on this component, is that it's designed, as we learned the hard lessons of COVID. We heard over and over again how the rural communities were struggling even more than other communities. And this is a perfect opportunity for remote work, being a driver for recruiting in rural communities, rural employees that wish to stay in their communities and not necessarily pick up and go to wherever there's a particular office. So again, it's based on certain factors, which Ms. Hurst outlined, but I think that it's important to note that those rural communities, would stand to benefit a great deal.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Chair and expert witnesses, I see there's not an appropriation. Has it been budgeted for? Because I heard your number, which was a little astonishing, at $90 million in lost income during FY24 because of the lost employees. But has it been figured out how it's going to be paid for out of the budget, Madam Vice Chair?
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, if you will look in this bill, the sections requiring an appropriation are not to be enacted until FY27, so not during this session, not during this fiscal year. So we believe that will leave time to account for those appropriations that were found in the FIR.
And to add, Vice Chair and Representative, it's up to the agencies when they submit their budgets. Once we enact legislation in such as this, then we allow for the agencies to be able to ascertain their workforce needs and then budget in what they believe is the workforce that is needed in those departments and within those agencies, and then work it into their budgets. And that's why we set the fiscal year 2027 so that the agencies would have the ability to work these numbers in, because they also have to anticipate turnover, vacancies, and other factors, but they still will budget for what their office or particular agency needs are in terms of workforce.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Madam Chair. And then, so, and forgive me if I'm not grasping all of this, should this be enacted, does the $15 minimum wage rate go in, that portion of it go into effect this coming year? Or does it all wait until FY26? Because it says that on FY26, then we'll begin using the CPI and a couple other things, I think, if I read that right, Madam Vice Chair.
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, the $15 minimum salary wage was already put in place by an appropriation in FY 2023. I don't know if you all remember, but there was a very sort of convoluted legislative raise increase that year, offered that year to state employees, and that was because we were trying to get everyone up to $15. So all state employees are at 15. If you check our pay bands on SPO's website, at the bottom of the pay band is actually like $15.69 right now, because there have been increases in the 2 years since then. So again, the 15 this year would be going into statute, but would not enact a salary change for any employees as far as we're aware. However, starting in FY27, the indexing would start. Does that make sense?
Madam Vice Chair, thank you for clarifying that, and forgive my ignorance. I've read it over a couple times, and then just to go back in this, when you said this is 12 weeks parental leave per child, and so if you have 5 children, you get 60 weeks a year, Madam Vice Chair?
Madam Vice Chair and Representative, it's for a new child.
Well, they deserve it if they can have 5 in 1 year.
Not,
Thank you for clarifying that as well. Again, forgive me. I was just like, oh my goodness. There's only 52
no worries.
But if someone can do that, I'm on board. Give them what they need.
Yeah, thank you.
And that's all I have, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Representative. Next, we have Representative Mejia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, representatives, presenters. One question that I have, how many days of PTO right now state employee have?
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, I read those earlier, but unfortunately I gave them to you as hours per pay period, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But the starting rate for a new employee, that was the 3.08 per pay period of less than 3 years of cumulative employment, comes out to 10 days per year of annual leave.
So how many days, Madam Chair, how many days that's gonna increase if this bill goes through? Madam Chair.
Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but Madam Chair, I believe it's 15. The starting rate.
Oh, okay, thank you. So how many days can Madam Chair, I'm sorry, how many days can an employee carry over to the next year?
Madam Chair, an employee can only carry over 240 hours over to the next year, and that is also the limit for payout if you separate with service. You can never accumulate more than 240 hours of annual leave.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Terrazas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Or excuse me, Madam Vice Chair, and experts. And I didn't get your expert witnesses' names, and they're both with the union, or who are you with?
Yeah, Madam Vice Chair, I am a current state employee at the Environment Department. However, I'm here in my capacity as our union's president right now. Megan Green, thank you.
Madam Vice Chair and Representative, my name is Lindsay Hurst. I am also a current state employee of the Environment Department, but as Megan said, I'm here in my union capacity. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Madam Chair, so let me back up here and just understand if I heard this right. So right now, currently, we have not a single employee in the state of New Mexico that's making less than $15. Is that true?
Madam Vice Chair, I believe so. I have not evaluated everyone's salary. However, I know what the pay bands say, and no one should be making less than the lower pay band.
Okay. And so, Madam Vice Chair, Representative, so who, I'm just kind of go through this quick little thing here. Who gives raises? I mean, who in the departments are they locked up right now where they can't give raises? Explain to me that. Explain that to me a little bit.
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, there are mechanisms in SPO board rules to allow for increases outside of the legislative increase that's awarded every year, the legislative cost of living increase. However, we largely don't see those happening. We have done records requests and IPRAs from SPO. Very, very, very few people get their salary adjusted outside of the legislative increase that's awarded every year. Unless they move jobs, unless they take a promotion, they apply. We don't get promotions. You must apply for another job at a higher level and interview for that job and get that job offer and take that promotion. So they're very limited opportunities for wage increase outside of the legislative increase.
Madam Vice Chair and Chair, expert, I've heard of weird things like that where they actually have to apply for a different department and then to come back, and then they can come back, and then they get a raise. So executively, on the executive side, where's the executive on this, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Chair?
Madam Chair, on which specific issue? The
she has the
increases?
Madam Vice Chair, she has the authority to adjust those, right? And give her department heads and secretaries the authority to deal with those on an executive. That's what the executive does.
You know, Vice Chair and Representative, it's tough to be put in the position to speak for the executive, for the governor. And so I wouldn't want to be put in that position because I really don't know. But what I do know is that what we have control of, which is what we're entertaining right now in terms of this piece of legislation, but it's really hard to, as the expert Ms. Green indicated, we factor in, the executive factors in the budget just as we do with our budgets, agency requests, and the regular annual increases that we approve when we ultimately approve all the budgets. So that's as far as I think I'm ready to speak to on that particular
Madam
point.
Vice Chair, Madam Chair, did you have any discussions? Did any of you guys have any discussions with the executive to see what could be worked out and work out some of these kinks?
Representative Anaya.
Sure.
Just on that point, Madam Vice Chair, I would imagine that if the executive, even if they wanted to give a pay increase, we as a legislature would have to appropriate that money. Is that correct, Madam Vice Chair and Representative?
Yeah, Madam Vice Chair, I will agree with Representative Anaya said. I will say we have these conversations with the executive a lot. We have these conversations with cabinet secretaries and agency heads about pay. I believe you know, Representative, we are here at the Roundhouse talking about pay a lot. But because we're under a collective bargaining agreement with the state of New Mexico, I don't, you know, that's between us and the executive, I guess I would say. But there is a reason we are here asking for some of these things.
So, Madam Vice Chair, let me just finish that, what I was talking about. You have budgets, right? So, and correct me, I don't know. I don't work in the governmental end, so I'm just asking here. You have vacancies. You have 20% vacancies, but you budget for those. I don't know. Let's keep the math simple. There's 100 employees. You only have 80, but you have budgeted for 100. Why can that? Well, can that department say, you know what? I'm going to give the 80 that I have a raise based on my budget of 100. Can that happen?
Madam Vice Chair, Representative, we have the same question. We're in agreement with you that those vacancy savings can be used for salary, but we don't see it happening.
And see, let me tell you, Madam Vice Chair, I think we do have a problem in the state of New Mexico to retain employees, and we do have problems. You know, I know that we sat on veterans, and we've heard the things with BSOs and how long it took to get those raises. That I think it took us 5 years to get that actually accomplished. In that we're wasting money because we're not retaining the employees, yet we're training them for let's just say the feds or whatever, a better job. So I get that we have a problem. I just my concern is, or not my concern, my question is, it should be able to happen, but who has the authority? I don't think it goes all the way to the executive, does it? To the governor's office. Doesn't that department head or the possibly the secretary have the authority to do that?
Madam Vice Chair and Representative, thank you for the question. To be very clear, we cannot speak on behalf of any of the secretaries or the executive. I just want to make that clear before I respond. Megan had mentioned that SPO board rule does allow for increases within in-pay band. They do report on this data point in the annual SPO compensation reports. You can find them online. One of the we have filed 13 grievances about appropriate placement of pay at all of the agencies that we represent. Now, that is not relevant to the bill in front of you today, but I think it is relevant to your question. In the case of the Environment Department, they actively did the calculations to correct pay and do in-pay band increases based on years of experience and education. And then they went to LFC and requested the appropriation needed to cover those increases. The vacancy rate at the Environment Department has since gone down. We are very close to being fully staffed as a result of that. So yes, it can be done under current SPO board rule. And I think that's all I have to add.
Yeah. Do you have anything? And just to clarify, we've been saying SPO, but it's State Personnel Office. Yes. That's what I've noticed a few. I wanted to make sure we understand.
So, Madam Vice Chair, I think they do have the ability to do that already. But why, being that why are your unions struggling to accomplish this? Why? I mean, that's usually their job. They negotiate that with. Why do you think you're unsuccessful?
Sure, Madam Vice Chair, Representative. I understand the questions regarding wages. However, we're not asking for wage adjustments in this bill other than the minimum wage for state employees. So I will say, I wouldn't say we've been unsuccessful. We're in the process of working on those issues, but they are separate from the bill.
Okay, I'm just going to move on. Next question, Madam Vice Chair. How does this affect para in any way in the future? Does it have any impact whatsoever? Some of it is underfunded, is why I'm.
Vice Chair and Representative, so the way para operates is the more contributions in, we are building in the fund, as you know, and so the more personnel in the system, the more personnel working, making contributions, then we're continuing to increase the para retirement, and that's the hope, that we increase so that we can have a workforce that is experiencing all the benefits, which includes retirement benefits.
So Madam Vice Chair, in the last time last week, I think we heard para was needed about $8 billion to be just solid, in funds. So I agree with you. I mean, obviously more people, more funding is put in there, but also at higher pay, they also take out more. So, Madam Vice Chair, the other thing is what happens, and this is a real question. Sometimes we have to be nimble, right? We've seen in the past where our budget gets stifled tremendously, and there's all of a sudden this pullback of, let's just say, oil prices just go down. We have a major impact. Do you worry that by us codifying $15 an hour, which, if they had to come back, and this is a real question, are you afraid that it would cause layoffs rather than them adjusting everyone's pay down a little bit to keep more people on and maybe pull back just a little bit? I'm not saying we'd want to do that. I'm just saying, what happens if we got in a situation where we say, I'd rather have, keep more of the employees and pull back a little bit of their pay just so that we can survive this dip? Or do we codify it and say, hey, we're stuck with that, and now we have to lay off a few people? Is that something that you'd like to address?
Okay. Madam Vice Chair, Representative, I've been thinking about this since we discussed this yesterday, and truly $15 an hour is so far below the minimum living wage that I believe if the legislature or executive did want the ability to drop pay below $15 an hour, those employees would probably leave anyway for another higher paying job. It's just not a competitive salary anymore, Madam Chair.
And I would add, Vice Chair and Representative, I think that we also have to be cognizant of the federal wage and salary laws that kick in, because I think there's a federal protection that indicates that when you're at a certain level, it's a violation of that law, that particular law, to reduce an employee's salary. And so there are a lot of factors that are associated with this. So it's hard to second guess, but it's not even a living wage. So we're already having a cycle of problems, and this will just continue to exacerbate.
Madam Vice Chair, I should have been a little more specific. They'll probably cut hours is what they'll do, or positions. So if that happened, rather than pay, I should have been more specific. So Madam, I'm going to move on because we got other bills. The remote work, is there any exemptions to the rule now, Madam Vice Chair, to that rule where you can remote? I would imagine there's some. So is there any remote work being done currently? Or is it an absolute no?
Madam Vice Chair and Representative, there is some remote work. So, for example, I used the example of the Public Regulation Commission PRC earlier. They have what is called deployed workers, who have a laptop, a vehicle, and they work out of a home office and or they are in their vehicle inspecting facilities and such. There are also a number of agencies who are allowing remote work for ADA accommodations. However, we have had for agencies under the executive, a lot of those people who have applied for those with legitimate medical conditions, we have had to refer to organizations like Disability Justice New Mexico for representation when agencies have refused to consider their accommodations. So yes, there are some already remote working, but it is limited.
Madam Vice Chair, I mean, there are already most people, you're saying, okay, based on the record that you said, most that you think, you're not sure 100%, but you think that because of what we passed, everybody's at $15 an hour, and that's where we're at today. And so I'm comfortable with that because you're already there. The state has obviously budgeted for that and stuff, and I'm okay with a accrual, which would be 10 days, right, Madam Vice Chair? 10 days is what we're talking about, right, for leave? And accruals.
Madam Vice Chair Representative, we currently have 10 days. We are asking for 15.
Okay, so I have two for 15. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. And then you have some paid parental leave, which I'm fine with that. The remote work, I have a heartburn on it, and I think we talked about that, Madam Vice Chair, because I think each department should already. I know you're saying we should give it to them, but it's already there, and I think what worries me about that is where just in the private sector when we have people that are remote, it's hard for us to. Because there's just sometimes us working together here, and all of us, Madam Vice Chair, remember what we went through COVID, trying to have these meetings. They're terrible. It was very, very hard. And so I can't turn around and say, hey, Representative Hall, what do you think about this? Or even my colleagues across the aisle here, for us, especially Ortez, and be able to have a discussion that are important, right? And so we lose some of that. And so I'm not a big fan of that. That's the only thing I have to say. So that's pretty much all I've got to say about that. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Vice Chair.
Are there any other questions from the committee?
I move to pass.
I'll second. All righty. Before we take the roll, Madam Vice Chair said that she wanted to offer some closing statements. Do you still want to do that?
For the
we do need to attract the best and brightest and try to hold them and take care of them. And although I have a little bit of gray hair in my beard, I'm not that old. And well, 52, man. No, but what I'm saying is we need to try and do some things that'll work to help our state. And I just hope that we don't that this legislation isn't abused. That's the key for remote learning and stuff. We still have to, in my opinion, have to give the executive and their departments the ability, the agility to move of what the needs of their departments are. It's important. because think of yourself as a manager or something, and then somebody forces you to do something, and you know that you could do better by manipulating your department in the ways that you best can serve the state. And I hope that we do reach a point where we can pick up the phone as our constituents can pick up the phone and get a hold of these departments. That the phone isn't ringing without an answer, where our phone calls and messages are being answered. I think that's very, very important. And so thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair, for this. And again, I vote like that with caution, and we'll see where this goes. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you all. And Madam Chair, you have the next bill. 246, I'm sorry.
Ay, caramba, sorry.
Thank you. And I will just need 1 second